Toto Wolff reveals how he almost cost his team the win. Lando demands an apology from Max, which he'll never get. And Checo's poor performance explained. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Now let's get straight into the latest F1 news. Martin Brundle has said the crash between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris was a case of very much Max 1.0 being on show on Sunday. Verstappen was handed a 10-second penalty by the FIA for being found predominantly at fault for causing the collision between himself and Norris as they fought for the lead in the closing stages at the Austrian Grand Prix. Norris was forced to retire after making his way back to the pits, while Verstappen was able to get back out on track and finish fifth, while George Russell crossed the line first to capitalize on the leading two colliding. This enabled the Red Bull driver to increase his driver's championship lead in the process. But Norris said after the race that he would be expecting an apology from his friend and rival for his role in their contact. Verstappen, meanwhile, offered up a defense of his driving tactics, but former F1 driver and current Sky commentator Brundle believes that the display on show from the reigning world champion was a return to his earlier default driving tactics, though he stands by his assessment of his talent being up there with one of the best he has ever seen in the sport. After their initial contact, however, the former McLaren and Benetton driver noticed another part of Verstappen's driving that caused him concern. Did Verstappen know Norris was there? He confirmed post-race that he did. He's on top of it all well enough, Brundle wrote in his post-race Sky Sports column. They touched, and it finished Norris's race, and left Verstappen limping home for 3/4 of a lap with a puncture. What I found alarming is that after the contact, and as they were both limping along, Verstappen clearly tried to impede and collect Norris if he could. Verstappen would get a 10-second penalty for the Turn 3 contact, but such was his pace thereafter on fresh tires it mattered not, as he recovered to 5th place, actually increasing his championship lead to the angst of many. In commentary, and in these columns, I've waxed lyrical about Max's talent, and I stand by that. He's one of the very best I've ever witnessed in 40 years. I've also said that he's calmed down, matured, and plays more the percentage game with 3 championships in his pocket. But that appears to have been a thin veneer, as this race was very much Max 1.0, with his default driving tactics and denials resurfacing. I'm making no excuses for him, but I do wonder if the ridiculous spat between his father Jos and team boss Christian Horner has finally surfaced on track for him. And to hear the Red Bull team on the radio after the race telling him it was all Norris's fault was a difficult listen. It damages their credibility all round. Toto Wolff disagrees with Andrea Stella that Max Verstappen's antics in Austria were a consequence of F1's race stewards not taking a stand during his 2021 title fight with Lewis Hamilton. 3 years ago, Verstappen went wheel-to-wheel against Hamilton for the world title, the two trading blows in the standings and on the track. One of their battles played out at the Brazilian Grand Prix, where Hamilton, running second to Verstappen, used DRS to make a play for P1, only for Verstappen to open his steering wheel and force Hamilton wide. Red Bull were quickly on the radio to then race director Michael Masi, saying that was all about letting them race. Masi decided it did not need to be investigated, calling the move one of those. Fast forward to Sunday's Austrian Grand Prix, and Verstappen was adjudged to have caused a collision on track, this time that driver being Norris. The McLaren stuck to his line around the outside of Turn 3, the two making contact and both suffering punctures. Verstappen was penalized for the contact, but that was of little comfort to Norris or McLaren. Norris's team boss, Stella, blamed 2021's attitude toward the rules for Sunday's drama. They have come back today because they were not addressed properly in the past, when there were some fights with Lewis, he told Sky F1. That needed to be punished in a harsher way like this. You learn how to race in a certain way, which we can consider fair and square. It was an opinion he reiterated during his briefing with the media, including PlanetF1.com. In every kind of human dynamics, he said, if you don't address things as soon as you introduce competition, as soon as to introduce a sense of injustice, these things escalate. I think either there was an incomplete job, let's say, that comes from the past, and there's a legacy that as soon as there was a trigger, it immediately became a case that escalated. This episode today should be taken as an opportunity to tighten up, to clamp the boundaries, and in fairness enforce some of the rules which are already in place. But we need to be very clear that these rules cannot be abused in a way that then leaves a margin to do a couple of times the same maneuver, And you know what? At the third time, there's going to be an accident. Of course, even statistically, there's going to be an accident. He added, "We don't want to see another 2021. I thought that was not a good point in Formula One racing. It might have been entertaining, but not for good reasons." That was put to Wolff in his media briefing, however. The Austrian says he does not see a correlation between the two. "I don't think you can take this conclusion," Wolff said. "It's been so long and away from our side. We are in a different place today, and I think he is. It takes two to tango. I haven't seen Lando and Max's race, to be honest. I haven't seen how all of that came about. I first need to watch it before I have an opinion, but I wouldn't see that as a big consequence of 2021 not having been managed well to what happened in 2024. I don't think they have a correlation." Bringing his RB20 home in 5th place, Verstappen extended his lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship to 81 points ahead of Norris. Former McLaren and Red Bull driver David Coulthard said Max Verstappen is unlikely to apologize to Lando Norris for their collision in Austria on Sunday. Norris called for an apology after the pair made contact while dicing for the lead in the closing stages at the Red Bull Ring, with Verstappen given a 10-second penalty and 2 penalty points for being judged predominantly responsible for causing a collision between the two at turn 3. The McLaren driver said after the race that he would lose a lot of respect for his friend and rival if an apology is not forthcoming for his role in their coming together. With Norris forced to retire after their contact, and Verstappen pitting after both drivers had rear punctures, Verstappen was able to get back out on track and finish 5th come the checkered flag, but a race win had appeared almost certain prior to a slow final stop from Red Bull that brought Norris back into contention. As for apologizing to Norris, 13-time Grand Prix winner Coulthard thinks that is an unlikely prospect. "Hell freezing over, I think, is the expression," Coulthard said on Channel 4 when the prospect was put to him of Verstappen apologizing to Norris for their contact. Max is going to go, "I was racing. It's hard racing." This is the first time Lando is experiencing going wheel-to-wheel really on a weekend-in, weekend-out basis. We know how it was when it was Lewis who was going wheel-to-wheel with Max. Max is one of the hardest racers. To beat him, you've got to match him. Regarding the contact itself, Verstappen was found at fault for causing the collision between the leading pair on Sunday, and Coulthard explained what will have been at the root of Norris's complaints over the Red Bull driver's defense of the lead, though he can also understand Verstappen's arguments on the other side of the fence. There was that contact as they enter the corner, further contact once they've gone through the apex, both of them with punctures and damage, avoidable incidents from both. It's cost them both finishing the race, Coulthard explained. This will be the thing that Lando is complaining about, just at that final part of the entry to the corner, that Max is continuing to come over to the left, and he'll claim he squeezed me and you're not allowed to do that under braking. Look, he's definitely crowded Lando across the track. If there was a barrier there, then they both would have sort of ricocheted off it. I completely get Max will say, well, hold on a minute. He could have gone further over the curb, but the stewards have looked at it. They've got more information. They've given a penalty to Max. Ultimately, it doesn't make a difference to where he finished in the race. Although disappointed with his own shocking Austrian Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton was quickly alongside George Russell to congratulate his teammate on the victory. Russell secured an unexpected victory at the Red Bull Ring on Sunday, as his lonely P3 turned into a P1 when Max Verstappen and Lando Norris tangled on lap 64. Attempting to pass Verstappen around the outside of the turn 3, the Dutchman closed the door on the McLaren driver as he moved to the left with the two making contact. Both cars suffered punctures, Russell storming past the stricken cars as he made his way into the lead to win his second ever Formula One Grand Prix. He received applause and a thumbs up from his 7-time world champion teammate, with Hamilton 4th on the day. Out of the cars a short while later, the 39-year-old also went over to Russell to give him a congratulatory hug. "Really happy for the team," Hamilton told Sky F1. "Everyone at the factory has worked so hard this year to get a result like this, so big congratulations to the team and to George. Well deserved." As for his own race, though, he called that pretty shocking. Hamilton later revealed to the media, including PlanetF1.com, that his W15 had suffered floor damage on the very first lap, costing him valuable lap time. "I'm not really quite sure. I think turn 1 I got a bit of damage and then the floor was just falling apart," he said. "I don't know when I got the damage." On an eventful day for the Briton, Hamilton was told by Mercedes to relinquish a position to Carlos Sainz, who went on to finish in third place, for their Turn 1 incident and was later slapped with a 5-second penalty for crossing the white line at the pit entry. He, though, still appreciated his teammates' success, adding, "George, you can see he's doing very well. He's won a Grand Prix already, so that's huge for everyone, a huge boost." Mercedes Motorsport boss Toto Wolff revealed Hamilton's damaged floor cost him 2.5 tenths of a second. Calling Sunday's race one of his bad days, the Austrian told the media, including planetf1.com. "A pretty decent start and then turn 1, lap 1, giving the position back was a harsh thing. But it was pretty clear that we would be getting a 10-second penalty by not doing it. Then it started to spiral. He pushed very hard on the entry, you can see how much he pushed, lost the rear, and then obviously the next penalty came about. On top of that, we had floor damage because of the curb ride, which I guess most people have, but his was extensive. It was 2.5 tenths in parts that broke off on the curb." Russell is 7th in the Drivers' Championship with 111 points, 26 ahead of Hamilton. Sergio Perez explained that his Austrian Grand Prix felt like a disaster after Christian Horner revealed there was a big hole in his side pod that hindered his progress throughout the race. This damage left him lacking straight-line speed and unable to make inroads, with the Red Bull driver crossing the line 7th at the checkered flag behind the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg. Perez made contact with the McLaren of Oscar Piastri on the first lap as the two diced for position early on, but the Red Bull driver was left with a significant loss in performance, according to his team principal, making his performance tough to quantify as a result. Checo, again, it was a tricky race for him, Horner said to media, including planetf1.com after the race. He had quite a significant contact on the first lap with Lando Piastri SK. He had quite a big hole in the side pod, and then the loss of straight-line speed that gives you. It's a bit like an air brake. So that's why he was struggling on straight-line speed, so it was difficult to judge Checo's race due to the damage that he had. When asked further about the scale of the damage and how much time he was losing in the race, Horner added, "I don't have the exact numbers. All I know is he had lost a big hole, and it was being reported on the data that there was a significant loss because of it." For Perez himself, he admitted to his frustration at losing out, and referenced the side pod damage as he came home in the lower reaches of the points. "There was a lot of damage on the side pod," he confirmed to media, including planetf1.com after the race. "I touched a bit with Piastri at turn 4. I don't know if it came from there. It was unfortunate because we had a good start, but from then on the car was just nowhere. Nothing I could do, I was just off balance. Also, with making a mistake on going into the pit lane with the pit limiter, it was just a disaster of a race that started really well. But I think with just lacking so much pace out there and lagging around, there was no hope for fighting people again." Toto Wolff has admitted he will be forever ashamed by his radio message to George Russell after Lando Norris and Max Verstappen collided to hand Mercedes victory in the Austrian Grand Prix. Verstappen and Norris collided in the closing laps of the race at the Red Bull Ring, opening the door for Mercedes' first F1 victory since the 2022 Brazilian Grand Prix. The contact between Norris and Verstappen drew an excitable response from Wolff, who took to team radio to tell Russell, "We can win this." Wolff's message came as Russell was braking at the end of a long straight, with the British driver quipping that he almost crashed after his team boss's transmission. Speaking to media, including after the race, Wolff admitted his radio call to Russell was the single dumbest thing he has done since arriving at Mercedes in 2013. He said, "I think I know the drivers pretty well and what they need at times to encourage or to refocus, because I spend so much time with them. So I think I know the psychology. But this one is the single dumbest thing I've done in 12 years at Mercedes. I will be forever ashamed of this." You look at where you message the driver. You don't do it on braking or in high-speed corners. But I didn't look where he was on the GPS. I just saw these two taking each other out. We anticipated it, and then I just emotionally pushed the button and said, "We can win this." I could have taken him out with that message. Imagine how that would have felt. I'm emotional. I enjoy us doing well, and I enjoy seeing Lewis Hamilton and George doing well. I was just carried away with that situation, and I think that's what he said afterwards, but that was seriously embarrassing. Appearing in the post-race press conference, Russell added, "Suddenly I had Toto screaming in my ear, 'You can win this.' I almost crashed when he screamed into my ears. It was that loud. But I think it just goes to show the passion that we all share. It's obviously been a tough couple of years for us, and it feels great to be back on the top step. Logan Sargent will sit out FP1 as Williams make use of their rookie driver mandate to give F2 race winner Franco Colapinto a drive. Colapinto is a member of Williams' Academy and is currently 5th in the F2 standings in his rookie season. His FP1 participation marks an important moment for Argentina, with the likes of Carlos Reutemann and legendary figure Juan Manuel Fangio among the 25 drivers from the country to have raced in Formula One before, the most recent of which being Gaston Mazzacane in 2001. Having come last of the runners in Austria, any hope Sargent had of bouncing back quickly will have to wait with the American sitting out for the first session at Silverstone. Teams are required to run a rookie in at least 2 FP1 sessions this season, and Williams have opted to put Colapinto in the car this weekend. His debut F2 campaign has so far seen him score a race win in Imola and podiums in the Barcelona and Austria feature races, as well as 4 further point-scoring outings for MP Motorsport. His progression to F2 followed an impressive sophomore year in the FIA F3 Championship, where 2 race wins, including one at Silverstone, 3 further podiums, and a total of 14 points finishes, led him to 4th in the Drivers' Championship. The outing will be his FP1 debut, but second time in a Formula One car, after he drove the FW45 at the Abu Dhabi Young Driver Test last year. "I have so many emotions," he said. "I am extremely delighted, and it's a very important moment in my life and my career. I will be the most prepared I can. I will be doing a lot of laps in the simulator and studying the details needed to drive this year's car. I'm really looking forward to experiencing the new car after driving last year's in Abu Dhabi. To be able to drive it at a track like Silverstone is a privilege. It is one of my favorite tracks, and to drive it at the team's home race means a lot. To all the Argentine fans, I hope you enjoy FP1 as much as I'm going to. It's an important moment for our country, and I'm so grateful for all the support I've been given. I'm going to give my all to make you proud." Sporting director Sven Smith said, "Franco has had a very encouraging start to his debut season in F2, and we are delighted to reward his performances over the past 2 years with his first FP1 session. We are proud of our talented group of drivers in the Williams Racing Driver Academy, and it is important for us to give them the opportunity to progress and have these important chances as they move up the ladder. To showcase our talent at our home race at Silverstone is a nice moment, and, of course, this is going to be a great day for the Argentine F1 fans." Following the FP1 session, Sargent, himself a graduate of the Williams Racing Driver Academy, will return to the car for the remainder of the weekend. Esteban Ocon is feeling quite confident about his Formula One future as it stands, and is hopeful of being able to comment on a potential 2025 seat very soon. Ocon will be leaving Alpine at the end of the season and has been the subject of rumored interest from Haas, as well as potentially Sauber for their transition to Audi should primary target Carlos Sainz choose to go elsewhere. But while Ocon was tight-lipped over a destination, he said negotiations have been going really well. 2 seats filled up on the F1 2025 grid over the Austrian Grand Prix over the weekend, with the confirmation that Ocon's current teammate, Pierre Gasly, will be staying with Alpine, along with the long-expected announcement that Lance Stroll will be staying with Aston Martin. 7 seats remain uncontracted for 2025 as it stands, and the French driver says that with negotiations over his future going well, he hopes to be able to be in a position to comment on where he will drive next year imminently. "I'm quite confident that I will be on the grid next year," Ocon told media including PlanetF1.com after the Austrian Grand Prix. "Looking at the discussions from this weekend and in the last couple of weeks, it's been going on really well. So on that side of things, it's looking good. I can't comment more at the moment, but I hope that I can comment very, very soon." Having had a year on the sidelines in 2019, Ocon stressed that he knows that Formula One contracts are not a certainty until he is signed on the dotted line, however. With that in mind, he is making sure to tread carefully until his next steps are finalized, though he is hopeful a repeat of that season is not on the cards at this moment in time. "I had the bad experience in 2018, as you know," he said. "I had 2 contracts on the table in 2018 at the end of the year, one signed, one not signed, and we stayed out and on the bench, so you never know until it's exactly done in Formula One. But yeah, it looks much more straightforward now, and hopefully, as I said, it will be done very soon." Thanks for watching the video. See you in the next one.